to address the issue in relationship to Pat McDonough and his vicious statements in relationship to young African-American men here in Baltimore City. Of course, earlier in the week, he made some statements in relationship to young men in Baltimore City being a youth black mob. He also indicated that he thought that the governor should bring in state troopers and participants of the National Guards to patrol here in Baltimore City. And of course, as a community, we completely disagree with that. Certainly, we know that there are some crime issues here in Baltimore City. However, our contention is, as a community, is that what we need to do is to address this from a community-based perspective. And I'm happy to say that we have had communications with some community-based organizations who do community-based public safety, who are interested in working with us to put together a comprehensive community-based plan to address and tackle the crime epidemic that we have in Baltimore City. But let me be clear. I think that for us, and I think that possibly even for Mr. McDonough, this is not really concern about public safety here in Baltimore City. Because if this were about concern for public safety in Baltimore City, he would have addressed his concerns far before now. We believe that this is somehow connected to some degree to the tourist who was attacked, which was completely awful, and we're completely sorry and remorseful that that took place and transpired. However, what this is about an issue of class and an issue of race, and people are attempting to protect the downtown inner harbor when we need to be worried about protecting and investing in the neighborhoods where the people are. We don't need to protect the buildings. We need to protect the neighborhoods. And if Mr. McDonough is interested in making sure that Baltimore City is safe, we strongly recommend that he supports the efforts of the Baltimore City Delegation in Annapolis to advocate for resources for the people of Baltimore. We strongly believe that he supports the DREAM Act, because it's almost as if that's anything that's anti-anybody but Mr. McDonough, he opposes. He opposes the DREAM Act, he opposed gay marriage, and he had the audacity to make these comments about African-American youth. So we want to know, who is it that Mr. McDonough likes besides himself? We are interested in having a dialogue. We're not beyond conversation. But we most certainly want to have an apology from Mr. McDonough, because our contention is that any type of conversation before we get an apology is not sincere and it's disingenuous, particularly since he has views, we believe, as a community that would take us back some 50 years to have the National Guards and the state troopers patrolling our communities. And we're going to have people talking about the horrors connected to having those type of forces come into our community.
Here, right. Because we're saying very clearly that our rec centers are more important than our race cars are. Right. We're saying very clearly that jobs are more important than some of the other issues that they have. Right. We need to look at what some of the greatest people in America have said, and some people around the country. Mahatma Gandhi said the same thing that Churchill said. Churchill said the same thing that Humphrey said. All three of them said the same thing. You judge a nation, you judge a people as to how they treat their old and their children. That's right. And we're saying very clearly, McDonough, yes, you gave us an opportunity to come together to speak about your bigotry. But we're saying to the mayor and the city council that we need to discuss where the jobs are going to go. We need to discuss whether you're going to put the funding from the bottle tax into education and building our schools. We're going to ask you, are you going to provide jobs for all the children in Baltimore City that need the jobs? We're saying that the mayor, she's got some things to answer to as well. We're not letting her off the hook. That's right. That our children need to be a priority.
That's right.
Yeah. Nothing before that. Our children must be the priority. If you're going to increase police in downtown Baltimore, what you're saying, you're going to look the other way because all the killings taking place in the other part of the city?
That's exactly right.
You're saying tourism is more important than the rest of the city?
That's right.
So we're challenging everyone, and I guess the difference here, you don't see some of the organizations that basically have alliances with the mayor, because I guess maybe she told them not to be here. But this group that is here is not afraid of the governor, the mayor, or McDonough and his folks. We're going to fight for our children and our community, and we don't care who we have to go after. Our children come first with us.
I just You raised, I think, important questions. We don't view opposing this delegate as a diversion from the other things that we're doing. And I did want to add to what Reverend Witherspoon said in regard to the solutions. I mean, anybody here who goes to any of the courts downtown or the one out in Wabash knows that the majority of cases revolve around drug abuse, frankly, in Baltimore City. And the answer to that is it's really a healthcare problem, and it's also a problem of jobs and education and all that. And it's not a diversion to address Delegate McDonough. I can't put his name on.
Old McDonald.
Because on the other hand, the issue of whipping up hate in a time when the economy is so bad is a very, very dangerous thing. And you know the old saying, if good people remain silent, then what he stands for rises to the very top. So we got to take it seriously. We don't see it as a diversion in that sense. On the good end, which I think Reverend Witherspoon was addressing earlier, which I think is just tremendous, is that we will stand together. The one thing that this has brought out is that several different communities who are represented here, who need support, who in the past have been demonized, whether it's been around undocumented workers and Latino workers who are documented, and also the issue of the DREAM Act. We have to, as a community, unite to defend the DREAM Act. We have to go out there and start a campaign of education, because how often do you hear all the demonization about those folks are taking our jobs? And then they go to white workers out in the county and say, look, they're criminals in the city and they're racial profiling. And then they go and they say, okay, gay marriage, they want to look down on this group and that group. And ultimately, as I said, I'm a union activist from way back. They want to go against everybody. So I tell you, this is a tremendous opportunity. We're not going to lose this precious moment to come together to make sure all these issues get addressed and that we stand together. But yes, there are bigger issues like jobs, police brutality, education, healthcare, rec centers and all that, and racial profiling, as a brother from SCLC pointed out. We are going to address all those, but we will not let any hate monger bring the National Guard into Baltimore City without opposition. I saw it when I was 17. I'm now 62, and I will not see a repeat of that without, taking direct action or occupying the Inner Harbor or whatever it takes to stop that kind of force from destroying our city. It destroyed Wilmington, Delaware. As a youth, I watched it, and we won't let that happen in our city. A police state is not the answer to unemployment and all the other problems that we're facing.
Thank you. I'm Elizabeth Alex, lead organizer with Casa de Maryland. And we're here today in solidarity with the other groups that are around the table to express our anger at the statement that Delegate McDonough made, and also to encourage the broader community to step up, join forces with us as we work to improve the city that we all love. All of us around this table have been actively engaged with our communities, in our neighborhoods, and with our members in working together with law enforcement, with local elected officials, with local community leaders to keep our city safe. And I think we all agree that the solution is not enforcement. It's not turning Baltimore into a police state. It's access to education, access to resources, and access to opportunity for our young people and for all of Baltimore's residents. I think it doesn't come as a big surprise that Delegate McDonough would issue an address similar to what he just did. If you look at the last 10 years of his record, where he has continually in Annapolis proposed legislation particular to the immigrant community, trying to encourage local police officers to enforce immigration law and to become to racially profile and to encourage these local law enforcement to turn into federal immigration agents. We don't think that that's the solution. We don't think that's a good use of resources, and we don't think that bringing the National Guard to Baltimore is a good use of resources either. We think those resources could be much better used through our rec centers, in our schools, for our young people, to provide access to opportunity. And I think that's the bottom line here. We're all here because we support our young people. We support all of Baltimore's young people, and we want to encourage them to do what they can do through school, through work, and through access to opportunity, and that we don't need to be criminalizing them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Now we'll have Sandy Ross from Trans United.
I just wanted to say good evening to everyone
Good evening.
who came out to this press conference. When I talked to CD on the phone and just listening to Pat McDonough from time to time on his show, it seems as though he picks issues, that, I don't know, it seems like he's angry with someone almost. He's angry with people, more than anything, trying to work with people, trying to solve the issues instead of create issues. And the issue around bringing in the National Guard at this point in time, particular time, would be, at any time, would be crazy. I mean, especially with our with the way things are with the budget right now. I mean, I wouldn't, if I was going on vacation, I wouldn't want to take my children and my significant other or husband or wife or whatever to a place where, the National Guard is occupation. I mean, you're talking about budgeting, and then on that subject, budgeting, we can't keep talking about budget. When we're talking about recreation centers and schools and all these different things that these children need. We can't keep putting the budget out there and making excuses about the budget, and keep calling yourselves true children of God. I hear so many people in politics today keep calling themselves true children of God. I'm a child of God, I'm a child of God. I don't know what I'm a child of if you a child of God, because I'm for all people, not just those who, who have those special interests for certain individuals, that 1%, that 5%, or whatever percent, at the top. So we have to look at this thing as a broader spectrum, and include everybody, include all of the children in this city, in this state. We can't just look out into the counties and put pools and swimming pools and recreation centers and schools for them and only them. We have to do it for all of the children. If we want to be consistent in saying that we are community leaders, we have to do it for all of the children. And if we don't, we're not consistent in our duty. We're not consistent in our duty. We're not consistent in anything that we say we want positive to improve the lives of people here in Baltimore City. And just one more thing in closing. The LGBT community, we think with Pat McDonough saying something, in a negative sense about the gay marriage bill. I'm hoping that they don't get the signatures, okay? But, we're living in a day and time where people do things. I mean, I've seen so much discrimination against this community, the LGBT community. I don't know where to go at on this, but I do believe that, justice will prevail. The truth will prevail in this situation. But I think that people like Pat McDonough, I ask them all, people like him all the time, do you have any gay friends? Do you have any lesbian friends? Do you have anybody lesbian or gay or trans in your family? So do you know of anybody gay, lesbian, or trans? Have you ever dealt with anybody who's gay, lesbian, or trans? They would say no. So how can you deter whether or not this is the right person to support legislatively or not? You don't even have a relationship with anybody like that. You don't know anything about them. But yet you're saying, oh, I don't like those people. How do you know you don't like them? You don't know them. You don't know them. You got to get to know somebody first. So thank you.
And our organization echoes the sentiments that everyone here has eloquently stated. But I have a question. Our organization primarily works or have been doing work in Southwest Baltimore for a number of years. We just recently had a police-involved shooting of a disabled lifelong resident of the area. 4 out of 4 of the recreation centers that are slated to be closed are in the 9th District. So you have police shooting disabled residents, you have all the recreation centers and 2 PAL centers that exist in a district closed, and then you have a state official talking about bringing in an occupied force. Well, what message are you sending the residents of the 9th District in Southwest Baltimore? That's my question. Thank you.
Have to pay this man's salary when he is doing these outrageous things and trying to discourage people from treating people like people instead of treating people on the basis of color. I think he's ridiculous, and I hope he's removed from office.
The points that have been brought out thus far are really appropriate, but one of the things that it really sheds a lot of light on is that this city is in trouble. When you got somebody like that you making statements like that, and the mayor is responding and seeming like she wants to add more to the mix. She's already put more than 50% of the budget in the police department. When we were setting up the March for Trayvon Martin, she had everything out there except for the Boy Scouts.
That's true.
But we short on money for the rec centers, short on money for after-school programs for the kids. We short on money for summer jobs for the kids. She's asking companies to do it. Why isn't that part of the budget? If the children down there is an issue, that's good. He might have shedded some light on something that we've been fighting for some time, and that's to make the budget more children-friendly. If you care about the kids, if you want the kids to stay out of trouble, give them something productive to work with. If you're closing down the rec centers, closing down the pools, what do you think they're going to do? If they're on the corners and they listen to politicians such as him and they're targeted, then you have a problem with racial profiling.
That's right.
Something else that we've been dealing with here lately. We wouldn't have had the situation up in Park Heights had we dealt with that adequately. Racial profiling was the reason for that. Racial profiling was the reason for Trayvon Martin.
That's right.
Why is it a public official standing up and asking for more racial profiling? See, these are the things that we really need to address, because if he's going to cause more injustices, we don't really need him around.
That's right.
So voters, y'all need to think about who we put in office. There's a whole lot of people that we need to look at that we put in office over the last few years, and we need to get them out, because this is not something that should be acceptable, not for black community or the white community or any other community. The main reason is that the children are innocent. They often, all they need is some true direction. You take the rec centers away, they're a safe haven, then what are you leaving for them? If they stand on the corners, they're targeted as being thugs on the corners, and oftentimes they're arrested or harassed. So what I'm asking is that use this as a positive. Maybe the mayor should pay attention to what's being said and redirect some of those funds. She did make a few adjustments, and instead of closing all of the wrecks, she closed a few of them. We got to look at who the people are that she allowed to sublease these wrecks or come in and take over the wrecks. If you got a rec center there, and then you're going to let a drug and alcohol program come in there, and they're going to be in there with the kids and returning ex-offenders, I service them all the time. I wouldn't put them in there with the kids. I don't even let them in my center until after 4 o'clock, because I don't want the kids and this population to mix. So if you care about the kids, maybe you should pay attention to this situation and make some phone calls to our mayor and tell him to tell Donahue to stay out of our business. And if she's supposed to be the mayor, she should step up and take on her responsibilities. So in closing, we need to look at less racial profiling in the city, less money for the police department. We have a huge amount of money for the police department. And then they talking about closing up firehouses on a rotating basis. So you can burn up because we want to have police over here on the corner for you. Where's the sense in this? You know, you throwing the kids down the drain. Now you're going to throw innocent people in the community down the drain as well. And racial profiling is bad for everybody. The case in Park Heights was an isolated case that could have a big ramification, because every kid that comes through Parkite may not be as passive as that young man that was there, that they jumped on for no apparent reason. Supposing he had a 9mm with him and he was just walking through that community and they jumped out there, it could have been a lot of innocent people hurt. So we need to stop racial profiling no matter where it is. And injustices to one is an injustice to all. So in closing, Donahue, you need to redirect your thoughts. McDonough, I'm sorry. He should have been Donahue.
We want to make sure that we make very clear our demands in relationship to the delegate. We want a public meeting with him here in Baltimore. We think that he is an outsider and a carpetbagger who has no real interest in this city. And we want for him to come here to Baltimore to meet with us about this and other issues. We also want an official position put forth by the Maryland Republican Party because we believe that they need to speak to this particular issue. He is a leader in their party. He wants to be their nominee, their candidate for governor. So they need to make their position very clear in relationship to that particular issue. So we want to be clear about the things that we expect from Mr. McDonough. And let me say this before we close out and go to everyone else. It is very critical that as a society that we address persons like Mr. McDonough. Mm-hmm. And what he thought he would do is simply galvanize his own base. But the Bible says that what the devil meant for the bad, God will turn it around and make it for his good. And what has happened here, we have unified and people are coming together that didn't have relationships before. We've got the African American community, Latino community is going to be coming together, Trans United is here, is coming together. So what the delegate attempted to do was to merely galvanize his base. But what we've attempted to do is to utilize his blunder to galvanize our base. So what Mr. McDonough needs to know is that he made a complete blunder, but we're going to pick up the fumble and we're going to run with it. We're going to hold an organizing meeting next week to address some next steps. Doc talked about WCBM. That's very important because we're going to hold WCBM completely accountable for Mr. McDonough. He's on their air, quite frankly, and he spews his malicious, intentional hate speech on that air consistently every single week, and we expect for WCBM to address that particular issue. So if Mr. McDonough doesn't do right by coming to us and meeting us halfway, especially since he has so much interest in Baltimore City, we're going to go after WCBM, and there's some of us here who believe in direct action.